Welcome to the Backyard Professor live show, Sunday night, March 16th, 6 p.m. here in the United States of America. How's everybody doing? It has been a rough previous 4 days for me. I attended the funeral of my best friend from my childhood, and it has been an emotional roller coaster. It was a beautiful funeral. It was nice to see so many of my other friends. We need to quit letting funerals being the reason we get back together after so long, but it all worked out. We knew he was in bad health, but we didn't know he was in that bad of health, but everything worked out all right, considering the circumstances. So I have not made a lot of videos this week, but I do have this live that I would like to do because, man, have I found an incredible subject. And I think realistically, the UFO idea, does it seem to you guys like it slowed down somewhat? Seems like there's not as much new coming out, you know. It's like everyone's beginning to review some of the old evidences, and that's what I'm going to do tonight in a very, very interesting situation that is superbly documented, and the evidences for the reality of the UFOs is absolutely staggering. Very, very cool, very interesting. So I want to share some ideas. I got a few video clips for you. I've got a couple of items in a couple of really excellent UFO books that I have to share with you. And this idea of the, hello, all of you. It looks like there's several people here. Really good to see all of you. I hope you're having a good day today. Triangular UFOs, the shapes. Now, of course, you know, in the last, couple of years anyway, seems to me like the emphasis has gotten to shifting to the orbs, sphericals, things like that. Cigar shapes are still quite popular. Triangles, not so much, but I'm not sure if you're aware or how aware, if you're aware of the particular overwhelming 2-year period where triangular UFOs was flying over Belgium so often, and for 2 years, thousands of people saw them. People from all walks of life. And this was back in the 1990s. And, you know, back then, not all of us were carrying our cell phone cameras. There are several very interesting drawings that share the commonality from completely separate peoples who didn't even know each other, who was having this experience. And as they were drawing what they were seeing and describing them, when so many of these drawings got together, and I will show you several of them tonight, they saw that people were seeing pretty much the same thing, and the descriptions were pretty much the same thing, and it absolutely overwhelmed people. Pretty interesting that since that time, so far as I'm aware, we haven't had such a, I'll call it a compact impact of so many UFOs buzzing our skies in such an interesting shape. These days, the big thing is orbs. And actually, we humans were so, we're so finicky, we're so fussy, because now we're bored with orbs. Give us something else without even stopping to think about what we're seeing. We're bored. There it is, an orb up there in the air, and there's no physical way in hell that it could be there. And yet that never even registered him. Oh, yeah, well, that's just an orb. I'm bored. Give me something else. Triangle. No, I've seen a triangle. Just flying saucer. No, I don't want to see a flying saucer. Show me something interesting. It's pretty interesting, our human psychology, how it continually craves the new and the entertaining and the newfangled and weird. Otherwise, we're bored and we stop believing because of it. The amount of evidence is staggering. Let me show you what I mean. Now, first, I want to share. I've got a video clip here that's pretty fun, pretty interesting. These guys are good. We seem to forget about the idea of observables and what is going on with the observables. Now, this is Jimmy Akin, UFO observables. Listen to what this gentleman has to say. This is pretty interesting.
In Chapter 12 of Imminent, Lou Elizondo recounts how the idea of the observables developed.
Back at ATIP, we focused our work on simple questions. What do we know about UAP? What can we boil all our knowledge down to? Intelligence officers are driven to find patterns, to fit together the pieces of a massive jigsaw puzzle. The UAP subject is so vast, no one could ever weave all the threads. The subject touches on everything from how UAP fly to witness accounts, medical questions, aerospace engineering, unexplained phenomena such as orbs and lights, quantum physics, and the human cognitive abilities such as remote viewing. Because of our military perspective, we often got hung up on things such as how the aircraft looked. The shape of UAP is important and was significant to us cracking how they operated.
The shapes that UFOs come in didn't make it into the list of observables, but it will be coming back up again in our discussion and what might explain them. So here's the detour I promised. Before we look at the observables themselves, we'll take a few moments to look at the common UFO shapes. As we discussed in episode 351 on the reported Immaculate Constellation UFO program, the Defense Department has done a significant amount of work categorizing UFOs by the shapes they come in. As we covered back then, the whistleblower report on Immaculate Constellation said,
from 1991 to 2022, the most common UAP shapes reported in this United States government dataset were spheres/orbs, discs/saucers, ovals/tic-tacs, triangles, boomerang/arrowhead, and irregular/organic. The triangle/boomerang/arrowhead shapes were by far the rarest and spheres the most common. Variations of morphology within these categories are present, i.e. smooth spheres and spheres with protuberances, saucers without domes and saucers with domes, smooth ovals and ovals with surface structures, jellyfish or floating brains with appendages, and elongated triangles as well as equilateral triangles.
One thing that just truly struck me on this astonishing variety of shapes is that these shapes, number one, there is a rather large variation, and they all operate in the air in a weird way compared to the way we are used to operating our aircraft. Our aircraft has to have a certain type of a shape or a morphology, or we don't fly. Simply because of the atmosphere around the Earth, we have to project something forward in order to give it lift. And we have to keep going forward. We later invented helicopters that have to go up and can hover, but the blades have to be on top. All of our stuff has to have exhaust somewhere. And all of our stuff makes noise. Sometimes a lot of it. The UFOs are just different than that. A Tic Tac just cannot fly, and yet it does. A flying saucer, now that might be aerodynamic, but the way they fly, based on being observed and hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands of eyewitnesses through the decades, they can hover, they can jet straight up, go straight down, they can be flying and take off on a right angle turn, etc. And this kind of behavior just can't happen physically with us because of our body types, the way we're made. It also can't happen because of the G forces. Now, not only against us, but the machines we make. 17G against a jet is that's pretty much at the limit that our physical machines can withstand before being ripped apart by the atmosphere, by the pressure, by the heat, from the friction, etc. So we are extremely limited. 17G is booking it, baby. That is grease lightning fast, and that doesn't happen in the atmosphere. If we're going to do 17G in a machine that we build, we have to get almost up into the stratosphere. We have to get way high where the atmosphere is way, way thinner, and then we can travel. And our travel distance is limited based on the size of gas tank, fuel tank we can put on the craft. So we can be in the air, 4, 5, maybe 6 hours, not at supersonic speed. We burn way too much fuel at that speed. But yeah, we're very limited in our abilities. What people through the decades have seen is these craft, and I know this is nothing new, but it's worth reiterating because, and I am one of these who sometimes get up and yell and get up in arms, get angry about some of the modern people who are claiming to have access to UFOs or who have seen UFOs, etc. They can go thousands of G's speed-wise and stop on a dime. Now, no machine that we're aware of that we have made, whether on the ground or in the air, can just stop like that. It can't be done. If a commercial airliner was flying through the air from Chicago to New York, and it was flying at 495 miles an hour, and it had to stop, it's not going to stop within the span of my hand from here to here in that distance. It will not happen that way. But with a UFO, it can. This is clearly something that we can't do. And yet people say, well, show us the evidence. And I'm one of those. I get it. There are days when I'm in the mood to where if you don't show me the silver flying saucer, I'm not going to believe a thing you're saying. There are other days after I read and study accounts like this where I say the evidence of that is pretty overwhelming. Now, there are people who have gotten to the point to where they say witness evidence doesn't count. They're wrong. It does count. It actually really, truly does. I have actually said, I don't want to see drawings. I want to see photos and videos. However, drawings are also evidence that do make a difference in our understanding of patterns of where crafts are being seen, what types of people are seeing crafts, etc. And so when I get impatient, we all do, sometimes we have a tendency to dismiss everything that's come up to this point before. Now, the ever-loving subject of disclosure. Disclosure. It's a word that we're all getting tired of. You know, criminy, it might be a subject that we're all getting tired of. Yeah. What is it that we want disclosed? Well, it's a noble thing. We want the truth. All right. That's legit. You're sus if you give us anything other than, right? So, all good. When we say disclosure, it can't be evidence for UFOs, because the evidence for UFOs historically is really impressive when you take it all into account. And no single person can do that, all of it that has happened. There is that much available to us. And we only get it piecemeal. All right, I'm with you. We only get it a little bit at a time. Yeah, well, I want it all right now or I'm not going to believe. Don't know. That doesn't work. I've gone that route. That doesn't work. When we want disclosure, it's not to tell us that the UFOs are real. That's not what disclosure is about. They're real. It's not going to change anybody's. I promise you, if Donald Trump comes out and says, well, yes, UFOs are real, and we've actually crashed some, and yeah, so they're real. I promise the skeptics aren't going to believe that. Well, I've seen them. No, you haven't. The skeptics are going to say that. And I'm not here trying to respond to the skeptics tonight. I'm just saying, I'm trying to differentiate what we mean by disclosure and what we mean by information. Disclosure, for me, when I hear the word disclosure, I want the government to have a live camera at Area 51 showing me the alien craft. And I want to see the alien bodies on live camera. That to me would be a pretty powerful disclosure. However, just think, hold on, wait. I know we've been waiting 80 years, but even if a camera live shows you a craft, be careful here. Would that be proof that it's an alien craft? Would you believe based on that? I would think you're a fool. That's not the only kind of evidence, and it may very well not be the best kind of evidence. And you go, oh, sure, you're drinking their Kool-Aid. Hold on. We can create some kind of a cool-looking alien craft based on past descriptions, drawings, photos, etc., and put it out there and then show it on live camera. And that's not going to prove that that specific craft is alien. And yet you say, well, I won't believe it until I see it. Don't be silly. Just because you see something doesn't mean you have to believe it either. There's nuance here, is what I'm trying to tell you. It's the same thing when we look at a photograph or a drawing. It's the same thing when we hear a story, etc. There's no difference in that. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. No, you won't. That's the thing that's so interesting. The skeptics have been seeing it. They've been seeing it in person's testimonies. Oh, well, that doesn't count. You see how arbitrarily evidence is dismissed. That's not what I mean by evidence. That doesn't matter what you mean by evidence. It's evidence. It's all a part of the picture here. Well, I need a clearer photograph. That's still evidence. You and I don't have a right to pick and choose and specify which evidence we'll accept. If you're going to convince me, you've got to convince me properly. Do you really think the government gives a spit about doing that? Really? Come on. Don't get too naive. I used to think that way too, but yeah, the government, from its own point of view now, it doesn't think it's beholden to your standard of proof. Do you really think they care about proving anything to us? Yeah, I'm trying. It's a battle, isn't it? I'm trying very hard not to become cynical, but to keep a skepticism enough to keep me digging and keep me asking important questions, to turn over every stone, etc., but not be so cynical that I disbelieve everything that's sent before me. That's self-defeating. But you must have skepticism. On the other hand, the irony is, don't you think, we also have to have some trust and belief. And watch, my numbers will go down to about 3 people watching now, because we all hate those words, trust and belief. And that's sad. That's a bad thing, because if in society you don't have a basis of trust and belief, you can't stay together as a society. And yet here we are, distrusting of trust, disbelieving in belief, believing in the cynicism and the disbelief. So our values have been skewed somewhere through time. And of course, it's based on all of the experiences and the stupidity that has been thrown our direction to us as the public from the government itself. I'm part of the whining, complaining people on that score. True. I make videos about it so everybody knows that I'm one of the whiners about that when the government keeps deceiving us. And yet, there really is interesting evidence. And I want to share now one of my favorite channels. And the reason I wanted to share that clip with you first, from that first one, is because the variety of, I have actually seen this, the variety of shapes of the UFOs through the decades has actually been used as evidence against their reality. And then they say, well, show me. It almost takes you to the point where you have to ask them why. You're just going to turn it against it again. The variety of shapes has nothing to do with the truth or falsity of the UFO phenomenon. And yet there are people who have made that an argument against them. It's crazy. It's very interesting. There is absolutely nothing in the world or the cosmos to indicate that in order for it to be true, they can only have one shape. That's like us saying we can only have one kind of automobile. Come on. Sometimes the skeptics really overstep their bounds, exactly as sometimes the believers do the same thing. So we try to avoid the extremes. We try to get to the evidence. Angry Astronaut is one of my favorite channels. I love how he presents the science with the UAPs. I love how he puts together the history. He can do this full time. So he's a good guiding light. He's skeptical where you need to be skeptical, and he is analyzing the data. He is exploring the evidence where you need to analyze and explore. That's the one thing I really like about him. He's got good depth to him. So tonight I want to, I've actually got one more clip of these other guys that I want to present that has bearing here. And I want to take it up to, where am I? 819. Hold on, right there. Okay, let's take a listen. Hold on, let me make sure you can see this. Yep, you can. Okay, here we go.
First,
The first observable is hypersonic velocity. Sound travels at a speed of 762 miles per hour. Hypersonic means Mach 5, 5 times the speed of sound, about 3,800 to 4,000 miles per hour. Do humans today have vehicles that can do over Mach 5? Yes, we do. For example, the X-15, the NASA space shuttle, and certain missiles can operate at speeds above Mach 5, but only in the upper atmosphere or in space, where the atmosphere is less dense. At low altitudes, the air is more dense, which makes high-speed travel exponentially more difficult. The SR-71 Blackbird can just about hit Mach 5 at high altitudes. Made up almost entirely of titanium, any faster, the aircraft would be incinerated by the heat generated. Additionally, when our aircraft go hypersonic, we usually hear a sonic boom as the sound barrier is broken. There are other associated signatures as well, such as heat ablation and atmospheric ionization, which can likewise be detected by our sensors. UAP are routinely clocked traveling at Mach 17 and faster at low altitudes, even at sea level. That's more than 13,000 miles per hour at low altitudes.
So, with this knowledge, we do metals and materials testing of all of our stuff that we make. We'll do a combination of aluminum and titanium, or iron and nickel, or some kind of a metal with another kind of a metal, laced with another kind of metal, and interspersed with we do different types of materials in order to withstand either heat in going through our atmosphere or impact hitting something else. So we do materials testing. So far, as of right now, the materials that we've been testing since the Industrial Revolution, that's what, almost 200 years, right? The Industrial Revolution has been going on pretty good. There is no material that we have ever been able to put together yet that can withstand Mach 5, Mach 6, I should say. The limit in the air is Mach 6. Now, we have radars. We have various types of equipment and sensors that can detect heat and speed and various types of revelation. Yeah, various types of radiation, Geiger counters, stuff like that. Nature has made it so that based on what we know right now, our limits are known physically. Now, that's not to count our body when the X-15 is flying along and it needs to do a sharp bank, the G-force on a pilot is going to make it so that the X-15 can't just, because it will mash the person through the seat into the floor and kill them, break their back, etc. Our body is truly rather weak as humans, as flesh and bone and blood and fat and muscle. So the machines we can make types of G suits that help us work with the G force. Because if you're in a jet and you all of a sudden go straight up, you start shooting up, the pilot can pass out. The blood goes too fast from our head and you pass out. Or if you're going down or spinning, too much blood can go to your head and it'll kill you, etc., etc., etc. There's all types of problems and contingencies with this. With our instruments of detection, which we're constantly improving, which we're constantly making better, more all-encompassing of every type of movement or heat signature that we can possibly think of, when we point our instruments at the UFOs, what we identify as UFOs or UAPs, and we see them doing things, and we calculate their speed, the amount of power they have, the pressure on their materials, etc., we can withstand 17 Gs. They can go 4,000 Gs. That is absolutely, I'll say it in 2 words, impossible. A United States senator actually said that once. I believe it was in the 1950s. I'm going to say that in 2 words, impossible. And yet we have our instruments that do work accurately and properly, and we are detecting things out there that is simply beyond our not only physical ability bodily, but our physical ability to make a craft that will stay together and function through the air or through the water or through space. Folks, that's evidence of an anomaly. That's what I'm trying to point out. When you say, you've got to show it to me with my eyes or I won't believe it, the instruments that record what is happening, the testimonies of those using the instruments properly, the verification of that, the description of what the colors were, how it reacted in the air, etc. If all of that fits, that is every bit as valid a type of evidence as seeing it on video. And you're not going to be able to see it on video because we simply can't follow what 17,000 miles an hour would look like in our atmosphere very easily. We can follow a jet, but they're only doing 700. Increase that 10 times, and you have to go like that and be keeping it in the camera and hoping you stay focused, etc. I'm just trying to express to you, 1, the difficulty, 2, the breathtaking, astonishing characteristics of some of these reports that I'm going to read to you. and show you on video tonight that if they're not blowing your mind, you're too jaded, you're too cynical, you've lost the wonder and the curiosity of how did that happen? How can they do that? Because it's impossible to do for we humans. That's evidence. That's all I'm saying. That's the point I'm trying to put across. I'm belaboring this too much, I know, but it is critical. So let me hold on. First, I want to read the account out of Dolan's UFOs in the 21st Century Mind. Very, very good stuff. Oh, the Hudson River. And here again, this is a case in point. This is a 1981 photograph. And, you know, we insist everything being clear or it's fake. That's just simply not true. Unfortunately, too much of it is unclear. I get that. I'm part of the complaining department when I see so dang many out of focus photographs. But now we've come up with an actual possible explanation for why, and I have a little bit more empathy for it. This is a 1981 photograph from Hannah Roberts, and the object is enlarged in the inset. This is out of the Hudson Valley sightings. I wanted to share this with you because it's a heck of a photograph. The thing is enlarged. She took a picture of the mountain. The camera was focused on the mountain. When she took the picture, she was not taking it of that object. It just happened to be there. Okay? In connection with that were other various shapes and styles that they mentioned and talked about. But the triangles over Belgium is what I wanted to share some of Dolan's ideas with you. This is page 246, 247 in his book, The UFOs in the 21st Century Mind. And it was in the winter of 1989 and into 1990. Belgium, of all countries, Belgium experienced a significant wave of UFO activity. This wasn't just maybe, there was a UFO on Tuesday night the 3rd, and then 2 months later, one person down south 200 miles saw another UFO, etc. No, these were lots of UFOs nonstop, constantly in Belgium in 1989 and 1990. Many of the sightings were of triangular craft, which is fascinating. Otherwise, they acted much like traditional disc-shaped flying saucers. Silent maneuvering, acceleration, extended loitering, hovering, etc. Low hovering capability. And many of these reports were well attested by not only John Q. Public, but by various police officers who were getting angry at the public for interrupting their morning donut and coffee routine because they kept turning in reports, and they themselves were extremely skeptical until they went and saw the UFOs. And they kept seeing them, and it spooked them. There was something very interesting going on at night as well. March 30th into the 31st, 1990, only a week and a half after the Moscow sighting. There were sightings in Moscow, now in Belgium. They contacted the NATO radar station. They reported 3 unusual lights forming an equilateral triangle, something which other police patrols soon confirmed. So the NATO radar then confirmed an unknown target moving at a very slow speed, and for the next 2.5 hours, a number of police officers and civilians noticed up to 3 sets of these triangular type lights, much larger in appearance than stars. and accelerating and maneuvering in unusual ways. I have a color photograph of this I will show you tonight. Taken. I'll show you. No joke. Fascinating description. Certainly the lights were attached to a hugely triangular craft, and then two F-16 jets were scrambled, quickly tracking unknown objects on their radar. Now, this is, for lack of a better term, this is called evidence that they're real. These guys are picking up something on radar. We now can access these reports and read it ourselves. This isn't make-believe. It's not, I'm not going to believe it because it's not on video. It's on radar. That matters. Radar is not going to pick up someone's imagination. It's a real object out there. Radar is picking up. I'm going to emphasize that because I have had people say, I have seen them, read their comments. Well, if I don't see it on a good video, I won't believe it. Come on, you can't get that narrow. That's ridiculous. This matters. Each time they approached one of the objects, the radar lock was broken. That's significant. You don't break the radar lock on F-16s. Nothing at that time could break the radar lock on the F-16s. These things were breaking that lock. Okay, so that's evidence for something very odd. That's what I'm saying. So the speed of one UFO changed immediately from 150 knots to 970 knots, roughly speaking, miles per hour, and dropped its altitude from 9,000 feet to 5,000 feet, nearly 1 mile in 1 or 2 seconds. Absolutely impossible for a human to endure that. Can't be done. G-force would absolutely splatter you inside that craft. The craft itself can't withstand that type of pressure. This thing did. And so it goes. I just wanted to share a couple of ideas with Richard Dolan because just to let you know, not only are researchers capable and able, and we have received and we are able to access the reports of these things. And yes, I know there's some cynics who's going to say, well, you know, it was just swamp gas. Those people you can safely ignore at this point. So let's look at one of my true heroes. Don't tell him I said that. The Angry Astronaut. I like the guy. I'm going to try to get him on my show. He's fun. He's a good egg. Okay, let's take a listen for a few minutes on some of his ideas. Want to make sure you can see him? Yep, you can. Okay, good.
Since the turn of the new millennia, UFO morphology has taken on some different appearances, and some would argue that UFOs are taking on different appearances because science fiction UFOs are taking on different appearances. For example, this UFO. And so reason would suggest that triangular UFOs like this one, and UFOs that bear any resemblance to a science fiction UFO, exist only because people want them to exist, or because talented CGI artists or talented drone builders have managed to construct UFOs that resemble these famous UFOs out of famous science fiction shows created by Chris Carter. But what many do not realize is that the triangular UFO morphology, at least, comes from a source before the time of the X-Files. As a matter of fact, the whole reason that Chris Carter used this particular UFO morphology is because of an outbreak of sightings and photographs, and also a series of military investigations into a UFO outbreak that took place in Belgium between 1989 and 1991. And ever since this historic outbreak, a series of triangular-shaped UFOs have been spotted all over the world, from New York to Brazil to Germany and everywhere in between. And there have been many rumors to go along with these mysterious craft, ranging from extraterrestrial scouts to experimental stealth aircraft built by the U.S. Air Force. But what is the real truth here? Is this just the product of clever CGI and cleverly built drones, or is there something far more significant behind these sightings and the many, many photographs and extensive footage to go along with them? Well, that's what we're going to look at in depth today on today's Angry Alien Bulletin right now.
Because of the timing in Belgium, 1990s, this was before really capable good CGI could be had. But we also have extremely interesting photographs. He showed one of the photographs that I wanted to share with you with an explanation. And this is out of Leslie Kean's book on UFOs, one of the truly excellent UFO books, without question. This rare photo of a UFO from a Belgian wave of 1989 to 1990, the photographer was standing below the nearby craft and captured 4 lights on its underside as it banked to the left. What made this so fun and interesting is when the image was slightly overexposed, the object's triangular outline was clearly visible with the spotlight on each corner and a central light. And that's that last image you saw. Whoops, there we go. There's the photograph, the color one. And there it is overexposed where you can see the triangular shape. And then there's the black and white on this side right here. And the caption says, in one analysis, an expert highlighted a halo of light particles in a pattern around the craft, suggesting the presence of a strong magnetic field. And you can see the halo around the craft. Now, in the gimbal video that Fravor showed, it was also a halo. And one of the discussions with this apparent envelope of whatever it is, ionized gas, we don't know what's around the UFO. Lou Elizondo, in his book Imminent, described how Hal Puthoff described the various characteristics of the observables with the UFOs and how those characteristics made it so difficult to take clear video and clear photographs of the craft because of the physical nature of their being able to travel the way they do. They have manipulated space and time and physics in such a way that there is something guarding, protecting, I don't know what to call it. There's an envelope of something around the craft, and they don't care if we can't get a clear photograph of their craft. That's not their concern. That's our problem. But fuzzy photographs do not prove the UFO is fake. See, this has become one of the skeptics' watchword, and it's completely hokey. No, I mean it really. I'm no longer going to use that reason to disbelieve. Well, it's got to be clear. I've got to be able to see it or I won't believe. Have you ever thought that with an advanced technology that's manipulating space and the atmosphere around it, that the fuzziness might be an index to authenticity? And because now when you see clear photographs and videos, everyone's bitching and moaning, well, that's just CGI. Well, how convenient for the skeptics. You want clarity. Then when it's handed to you in your lap, you still refuse and you make up another excuse. Part of this envelope, this glow as it were, around the craft is partly what helps it also become a multidimensional craft of being able to fly through the air and dive into the water and continue under the water at the same speed it was flying, something no human craft can do yet. Not even maybe. That we're aware of. So this makes this all the more interesting in that our presumed human characteristics of truth and reality must be met in order for us to believe, and the aliens aren't going to play that stupid little childish semantic game of truth and reality. They're here, they're real, and they don't give a damn whether we believe in them or not. That's our hang up, not theirs. It's like our hang up with the airspace. Well, they're invading our airspace. If they have been here for tens of thousands of years, maybe they don't give a damn about our concept of our airspace. It's not our airspace any more than it's our oceans. So there is some adjusting to do, is what I'm suggesting. That is very clear to me the more I read the various excellent books of like Leslie Kean's UFOs, and Dolan UFOs, and Lou Elizondo's Imminent, although he's not as interesting as this one. Let me show you. Now, this is from Major General Wilfried de Brouwer. Now, he's retired by now. This was a hard-nosed, no-nonsense, no bullshit general. He wanted to get to the bottom of what is in our airspace. No Mickey Mousing around with this man. He was straight shooting son of a gun. And he tried his best to get to the bottom of what could be causing such concern in our air. When a UFO splits between two of our F-16s who are only 100 feet apart, traveling at 650 miles an hour, and a UFO splits them, this man said, enough. We find out what the hell. This is seriously violating our airspace, and it's dangerous. Nobody's going to survive a collision like that. Absolutely no other Air Force or Navy or Army in any other nation in the world can split the F-16. Not happening, not on his watch, not ever. It's physically not possible to do. And yet it's done. He couldn't find out what it was. He did everything in his power to find out what it was. He systematically, Keen's analysis of this is really, really well done. I've got it all marked up to try to read paragraphs to you and stuff like that. I don't think I will. I'm just going to give a quick summary. If anybody could cut through the BS and find out if someone had that technology, General de Brouwer would have been the man. He couldn't find any explanation that made any sense. And therefore, he didn't say alien. He just said, it's not ours, meaning human. It can't be. He knew the technology that we had in 1989 and 1990. This was far beyond that. So it wasn't us. That didn't say what it was, but he had to leave it at that, and it concerned him greatly because of their techniques. And the color photograph, I showed you the color photograph of one of those craft. Yeah, I showed you that. I wanted to make sure I showed you that. And they described the bright spotlights. Now, these were witness drawings of some of the civilians, as well as some of the police officers of the UFOs that had lights on the very edge that were pointing down like spotlights. They had different colored lights, red and green, etc. There was one shape, there was one disc that went zipping along and then jumped up and hovered over the highway. That's that picture right there. That was drawn by a woman who experienced that over a highway. And then there was another analysis of a somewhat triangle with a round nose, and those three dots in the triangle were the lights. And then there was a central light that was a different color. This consistently showed up in the Belgium descriptions of what people all over Belgium was seeing, whether it was drawn by children or adults. There were triangular crafts with lights on the edges and the tips. It didn't matter who was drawing them or from where or for how long the craft were in the specific area. Some of them hovered for several hours. Our machines can't do that. Yes, our helicopters can hover, but not for 2 hours. It runs out of fuel. Also, it makes a boatload of noise. No one reported sound. No one reported exhaust fumes. No one reported the sound barrier broken. Many, many reports had the UFO came down, stopped, and then instantly went up and disappeared, and there was no sonic boom. Physically impossible with human-made craft. One, to take off that fast vertically. Two, to go from 0 to, 11,000 miles an hour, something like that, and no sonic boom. And yet, here we are. We have the evidence that that is what was being seen, and that is what was being done. Now you say, yeah, but I want the evidence right here and now today. Again, let me remind you, the UFOs are not beholden to your own wishes and desires for proof. They're on their own agenda. And in a way, this is a good thing because it can help us recognize that if you're going to walk the walk instead of talk the talk, you'll go start looking at the skies yourself. You'll start saying, well, there actually is a way I can find out. Yes, I can sit and wait for someone else to tell me what is real and what is true, or I can go find it for myself. That's the options that we seem to have. We do know, and Keene and Dolan, I mean, all of them, Hynek, J. Allen Hynek's book I've got over here, Jacques Vallée, Diane Pasulka, all of them, Clark, discuss how this, now the triangular materials were focused in Belgium for a specific period of time. Now, that doesn't mean that's the only time that the triangle ships showed up. I mean, like I said at the beginning of the show, mostly now it's light orbs that so many people are seeing. Well, these aren't real UFOs. I want to see a saucer. Yeah, well, maybe you ought to get psionic ability and tell them, hey, would you mind knock it off with the light orbs and show up in a saucer so I can believe in you? I mean, if how bad do you want the truth? You really think you're going to believe it if President Trump stands up there in front of the pulpit and says, oh, by the way, I saw a flying saucer flying above the White House. That's real. You're going to try to convince me you believe now? Don't kid yourself. You want to find out? Go do it. But, to insist it only is in a certain manner that only will convince you, good luck with that. You're going to end up disbelieving in truth and reality if that's the angle you're going to take, right? I want the evidence as bad as any of you do, if not worse, but I'm not going to get it from waiting. That's one of my fears. I wish disclosure would happen. My skepticism keeps going up, which is unfortunate. The government, the psionics teams, those guys aren't really giving me a reason to be enthusiastic and hopeful that, oh, hey, maybe 2025 is going to be the year. Well, I mean, all hell is going to break loose by March. We're halfway through March, and I haven't even seen the H in hell yet break out. Everybody wants to hype it up, but where is it? Well, it's out there. But maybe you and I need to go look a little more, or start looking in the first place. I know, that's too much work. Well, then don't tell me you want the truth so freaking bad. Well, I want full disclosure. No, you don't. Who do you think you're kidding? You don't want diddly spit. You want to sit on your ass in your lazy boy watching TV while someone else tells you what's real. And then you're not going to believe them. And if you do believe them, you're a moron. How do you know they're not lying to you? Everybody else has been. Isn't it interesting, this psychology here that we see on display sometimes? Nobody is telling you the truth. They're all lying. Steve Greer, he's a grifter. Lou Elizondo, he's full of shit. Danny Sheehan, he's a crazy batshit lunatic storyteller. Nobody's telling you the truth, but we want the government to disclose. Who the hell do you think has been making everybody stay silent? From the three-letter agencies, the CIA, the FBI, the DOD, the DIA, etc. And now all of a sudden, if they decide to tell you, okay, we will tell you the whole truth, and here it is, you're all of a sudden going to believe all of the liars for the last 80 years? Who do you think you're kidding? Come on. I'm going to laugh my ass off at you. Sorry, I'm not trying to offend you, but come on. You tell me to get real, some of you. Well, I'm telling you to get real. I'm going to turn the tables. Well, I've waited so long. Well, just die waiting or do something about it. I honestly don't see any other option. Give me another option. Give me another option. Comments below the video. I can either wait for government, which ain't happening. I can dare prophesy it's not going to happen to the point of making skeptics believers. Or you can go find out yourself. However, whatever method you decide to do. You know, I'm not saying you have to become psionically adept or learn how to do remote viewing, etc. It might help. I haven't started studying that stuff yet. I am meditating somewhat, and they say meditation can up your chances. And I am starting to look at the sky, and I've got a little bit of recording equipment. I'm going to upgrade here, hopefully after taxes, if I don't have to pay too much. But yeah, give me another option of what to do, you know? My question is, and I asked myself this, and this is why I changed my tune. Because rather than looking out, I looked in, right? And I said, okay, what will it take for me to believe? What am I willing to do? And that changed everything. If I want to become physically strong, are you going to sit around for 20 years until someone comes along and tells you, wow, dude, you bad, you tough. Yeah, you're tough. Really? Or are you going to go out and start doing your own calisthenics? Are you going to start doing your own exercises? Are you going to start increasing your own strength? I'm putting it that way. You go, now you're just being stupid with your analogies. Am I? Do you think knowledge is any different than improving your strength? I don't, because it's the strength from the neck up. How do you get knowledge? How do you get knowledge? Through your senses. Are you willing to just let everyone else tell you what's real, when you know darn good and well that everybody else out there has a different conception? They have a different understanding of what is real. You think I'm kidding? Talk to a Christian, and then go talk to an atheist, and then go talk to an astronomer, and then go talk to an astronaut, and then go talk to an economist, and tell me they all agree with each other about what's real. And which one are you going to believe? You can't believe all of them because they're going to contradict each other. I guess you could if you want to. I wouldn't. But is that how you're going to acquire your knowledge? Just letting everyone else tell you? Or are you going to go find out yourself? And I know I almost sound like a broken record. I'm almost becoming a preacher of this. I don't mean to. But quite frankly, I don't see any other choice. You either let someone else tell you, and deep down you know that's never going to satisfy you, or you go find out for yourself. And here's a hint, and this is based on my own experience. And now, I'm incomplete. I get it. I'm human. My IQ is not in the genius scale at all. I understand this. But what I used to think was true or real, I have had to readjust as I continue following the progress of history, of archaeology, of astronomical discovery, because we keep putting better and bigger and more powerful telescopes up there, and it is changing what we understand about the cosmos, and about religion, and about spirituality, and about I'm serious. The more you study, the less you know. And that's absolutely terrifying. But there you go. There's the hint. I can't see any other way myself. Unless you believe that God is going to simply open your head and pour in the knowledge. And in that case, let me know which God does that. I'll go worship that God, because that's a pretty nice, decent God. On the other hand, that'll short circuit you. You won't believe a damn thing he pours in your head anyway. So, what's the way to do this? One step at a time, one book at a time, one video at a time, one piece of evidence at a time, with the understanding that no single book has it all. See, this book is so good, but she doesn't cover many of the topics that Lou Elizondo in his book Eminent covers. And yet that's about UFOs too. And this book is really good. And Dolan's book is really good. It's a fabulous, comprehensive overview. And yet neither one of these two cover the information necessarily the same as J. Allen Hynek and Jacques Vallée, The Edge of Reality, etc. You can say that with every book. So no single book is going to give you the answer, but it is a piece, it is a part and parcel of it, just like a photograph of a UFO is. A photograph of the UFO is not going to give you the complete truth, but it'll give you something. And you have to build up on that. That's how reality actually works. And yeah, it's maddening. And yeah, I don't want to have to do all that work. Well, then you don't want the truth. May I please be blunt? Yeah, I've already lost 30 viewers in the last 3 minutes because I'm telling you the truth. It's not easy, and it is up to you. And if you want it, and yet who's willing? It's too much work. Well, then don't tell me you want the truth. It's okay. I'm not judging you. I'm not saying that makes you a bad woman or a lazy guy or whatever, but don't tell me you want it if you're not willing to go get it, because you're lying to yourself there. And so that's my message tonight. We will never get the full truth. If you can't accept that, you're in for a real shit sandwich for life. I got bad news for you. You're going to start getting bags under your eyes. You're going to start getting skeptical and mean-spirited, and you're going to start hating stuff. And there's no point to that, but I'm just saying, if you can remain flexible and happy about what you learn and know, with the full realization that learning is a growing process, and it is something that you must remain flexible with to change your mind in light of new evidence. Otherwise, you're going to be like a glass that shatters on impact when new knowledge comes in. You got to be real careful on that. The UFO subject is in that arena, in my opinion. That's my personal philosophy. I have found it's actually a very interesting approach to truth. It's kind of a fascinating, you bounce in and you bounce out. You read a few books, you get a little cocky, you think you know everything about UFOs, and then all of a sudden someone sees a UFO that looks like a jellyfish, and you go, what? That's got to be fake. Other people swear it's the truth. It's real. But it doesn't look like a saucer, certainly not triangular. It didn't have lights glowing, etc. That's the classical UFO. That's malarkey. And you see, we're all judging it, trying to come to a knowledge of the truth, and you can't quite grasp it because it's infinite. So if you're comfortable with living with your ignorance, but attempting to overcome it, you could have a good life. If you're uncomfortable with having to change your mind. No, I want the truth. Final, done. You're on a fool's errand. We're finite beings. We only live 70 years on average. The cosmos is 13 billion. You really think you can learn the truth of a 13 billion year old cosmos? I've got scientists and astrophysicists who have won Nobel Prizes, etc., for physics and mathematics. Their books are over there in my shelf right now, who say we don't even know 4% of the universe yet. And that's with all of our magnificent instrumentation. I mean, how can we? Right? We don't even know everything there is to know about the sun. And we look at it nonstop every day from hundreds of laboratories and sun telescopes around the world collecting data, and we still don't know everything about the sun. And that's just one part of our solar system. Anyway, I'm on a rant and a rave for a very important reason. Because I keep saying, well, I want the truth. It is a rhetorical stance in order for me, for my psychology, to stay on to have the attitude of, I will continue looking. Now, I can't look with the same degree of excitement or energy every single day that I would like. I get that. There are some days where you have to just leave it alone. There's other days where you can jump in both feet and get a lot done and understood. We, in 1900, knew that there were only two very minor problems with physics. We had all of physics figured out as a species, all of it in 1900. And then they discovered the quantum. And it blew the living hell out of our certainty. And we still haven't recovered 125 years later. We don't know spit. Well, I would propose the same with the UFO situation. So humility is what it's called for. Oh, and there's that H word. Yep, yeah, I just dropped another 15 viewers. No, I'm actually serious. In the last 2 minutes, 15 more viewers left for whatever reason. Oh, there goes another 5. Because you hate being told you have to be humble. I do. And yet you got no choice. If you really want to communicate with them, you got to be humble. Chris Bledsoe. But who wants to do that? Just show the hell up so I can take your damn photograph so that I can know you're real. Cooperate with us, man. See, we think the world revolves around us, and it just doesn't. So anyway, that's enough of a rant and a rave. That was kind of fun. That is not what I expected to talk about tonight, but it's okay. It's all good because it's all of a piece. Sliver by sliver by sliver by sliver, we hope to assemble this gigantic jigsaw puzzle of a very fascinating cosmos that is an enigma and a mystery and a puzzle, and we haven't solved it yet. Thank goodness. What a bore it would be if we knew everything, right? Now, that's an optimistic stance, and that's the one I'm going to take. So, all right, you guys. Hey, I do appreciate all of you. I haven't had a chance to read your comments. I hope I didn't offend too many of you. I'm sure I did. That's how reality works. When it doesn't conform to me, I get mad. Well, that's the human ego thing is what we have to set aside according to Buddhism. And none of us are very good at that. I'm not anyway. Maybe you guys are, but I'm not. So I have to work on that constantly. So I'm going to head out of here. do appreciate all of you and all of your support. I appreciate all of your intelligence and enthusiasm for this subject. Share this video, hit the like and subscribe. Thank you for being here tonight. It's been a lot of fun. I will return with the Major General George Filer with Robert, hopefully next Sunday. We're going to have part 3. We're trying to work out so that we can get him on a computer instead of on the telephone. That's a lot of fun. He's got a lot of good information to share with us. So more of him coming up. Appreciate all of you. I got to go. Have a fantastic week. Keep your eyes open for new videos. I'm going to try to be making them every night if I can. And we'll just keep right on trucking, baby. I love y'all, but I got to go. Thank you once again.